And welcome back to the Tech Time podcast, where you get all of your technology news. So, Matt, some big announcements this week in regards to a new cryptocurrency. Walk us through that.
Well, Facebook's Libra currency was officially announced. Rumors have been leaking for weeks. In fact, Dan, you reported on it just last week, and in fact, it looks like you already had most of the details down pat. I'm curious to know where you got the information from because it was only official today.
Slashdot. That's where I get everything.
Yay,
And that's where
Slashdot.
every tech website that you go to copies too.
Nice, good to know. And good to know for all of those of you who want to start your own tech podcast. Start with Slashdot.
Yeah.
And Reddit. Reddit's good too.
Uh-huh.
So it's named Libra. This is something we didn't know of before. I think they chose it. I didn't find any reason why they chose Libra, but of course you think of the balancing of the scales when you hear the word Libra, and I think that's the key. A lot of people are afraid of cryptocurrency because of the volatility. We look at Bitcoin shooting up and then dropping, and all the other cryptocurrencies are doing very similar things right now, some more stable than others. And so there's actually a cryptocurrency type called stablecoin.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what this is. Facebook wants Libra to be a stable coin, and it's definitely not the first stable coin, but it's definitely going to be the biggest and probably the most set up for success. So a stable coin is backed, as you reported last week, on stable currencies and banks with reserves. So this is actually what it says. Quote, Facebook said it will be based on bank deposits and government securities and currencies from stable and reputable central banks. In other words, large currencies. So
Yeah.
you can bet the US dollar, you can bet the euro, and some more of those stables out there, like perhaps the British pound, the Canadian dollar, the Australian dollar.
Chinese yuan.
Yeah, hopefully the Chinese yuan gets in there, but you can bet that Japan will be in there too. So it's going to be more stable, and that's what they're trying to do. Now, last week it sounded like they were trying to create this world currency with no transaction fees between countries. They didn't come out and say no transaction fees in their announcement today. They came out and they said affordable fees.
Right.
So, a good part of the world could debate on what affordable means.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the question.
Hopefully this will open up a little bit more competition, though. I mean, I find whenever you get new technologies like this, it's more expensive, and then down the line it gets a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
My biggest gripe with cryptocurrency, I actually made a transaction with Bitcoin one time, and it cost me $25.
Oh, wow,
And
that's
the
really
actual
expensive.
transaction itself was only $30. So the amount of money it cost to transfer the Bitcoin was almost as much as the purchase.
That's a shame.
And so this Libra coin is going to be a lot cheaper, a smaller percentage, I'm hoping, but really they need to get it so it's free.
Yeah, they need to get it so it's free, because really, why is Facebook in this? Facebook is in this because they want to use their messaging platforms as a store. In fact, it's fascinating. I've been scouring the internet for really good deals of computer components. I've talked about this for about a month now on our show, that I want to build this computer with my kids. And so I've been looking at used parts and new parts. And where do you go? Craigslist, or in Canada, Kijiji, which is the Canadian Craigslist. But what's fascinating is quickly, especially with different demographics, Facebook is starting to replace Craigslist.
Yes.
And there's Facebook Marketplace, and then and that started actually, I believe, at the grassroots level with communities who said, like, I belong to one, and it's called the Gold Bar Market, or buy and sell Gold Bar. And so anybody in the Gold Bar community, and all I have to do is even show I'm close to Gold Bar, because I think there's people in there from all over the city, but you can buy baby clothes and like board games. I also belong to another one, board game geek, buy and sell,
What? I
right?
didn't know you were a board game geek.
Oh man, have you seen my wall of games? It's pretty good. It's not as good as our brother Joe's, but it's
Did
still
I
good.
did I tell you about the board game I played the other day?
No.
Okay, so here in LA they have this it's almost like a bar where you go in and it's got every single board game ever created.
Oh
It's just
yeah.
like a huge library of it.
Yes.
And then you can sit down, you can have drinks, they have a little cafe, and for I think like $10 you can just spend all night playing board games.
I
So when
love
I
it.
got there, some people had this board game out where you were an art collector and
Mhm.
you'd go around and you'd buy and sell art.
Is it called
And
Masterpiece? Because I owned that game when I
what?
was 12. I got it for Christmas.
Okay, yes, that's what it is.
It was called Masterpiece? You
Yeah,
never
I think
mentioned it.
so. Yeah.
I wonder why
Anyway,
it
it's
disappeared
pretty
when
cool.
you grew
Maybe you
up.
could buy something like that with your Libra, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so let's get back into the Libra. So Facebook is basically saying, okay, I'm social media, I'm messaging, now I want to be a store. Because that's really what they're doing. So I hope that they keep these transactions low. And the reason why there's actually some hope that it will be kept low is it's being governed not by Facebook. So last week, you and I were talking about maybe now's the time to buy Facebook. It's on sale. It's cheaper than ever because of its woes with different governments and privacy commission issues. And now they're going to get into cryptocurrency, but they're actually not going to govern it, nor does it look like they're going to make any money off of it. So it's
Well, I think their hands are in the pot somehow.
their hands are definitely in the pot. So
Come
let me
on.
explain how this is organized. So they've created a nonprofit organization called the Libra Association, and it's going
Mhm.
to be headquartered in Switzerland. Of
Of
course,
course.
that's where your banks are. And yeah, we're going to get comments on that accent. So anyway, there are currently 28 founding members of the Libra Association. So there's PayPal, Visa, Uber, Coinbase. I also saw what's the music app that we like to listen to? Spotify is in there as well. And each one of these companies has to come in, like minimum buy-in is $10 million.
So what are they going to get out of it? Like, if this is a stable currency that doesn't inflate, how are they going to make money?
Well, that's a good question. You'll notice that most of these businesses that are involved here either involve international transactions, right?
Right.
So let's take into account PayPal. So PayPal's almost a mini bank,
Right.
and don't they're not set up with like a cryptocurrency, but they're definitely a way to transfer money for low costs around the world. And so you'll still have some exchange fees, and you're still exchanging. So for example, the Canadian dollar to the US dollar, you're
Mhm.
still going to get hit there, either through your bank or through whatever PayPal manages.
They don't do a fair transaction between the two countries.
So if you use Libra and on PayPal, you can also have a Libra account instead. Like right now, I have a US dollar account and I have a Canadian dollar account. So if you use Libra, you could just have your one account and then you could pay through PayPal using this currency. So that makes sense for PayPal and places like Coinbase. But now imagine Uber, right? So Uber is all over the world and tourists come from all over the world. And so if you can just hop into your Uber, and instead of getting hit with transaction fees off your credit card or from your bank, you just use a Libra, it really centralizes this transaction. So you can see why these global companies mostly, they're either into global money or they have a global group base that is trying to use their um, what they have. And so it is just so much more affordable, I think, to come up with this international currency. So I think that's what it is. So each member invests $10 million and then they must maintain a node. So a node sounds like this will be the only way that new Libra will be formed and created. No matter how much I searched, I could not find how they create new,
Oh.
right? So most cryptocurrency, it's done by crunching numbers and
Mhm.
only a certain amount gets released at a time. I don't know how this is going to work. It sounds to me like these nodes are the only way that you'll be able to create it. So perhaps these companies that are coming in and who will pay $10 million to get a node, they may make money as the currency inflates.
But it shouldn't inflate. according
Well, when
to.
it starts out, it may because nobody's going to be using it. But once it becomes current and commonplace, that's kind of where I see it. So it sounds like they're the only ones who can create it and control it. And the interesting thing is every one of these companies that buys in at $10 million only gets one vote.
So
So,
I don't know. Do you think this is a good idea to have tech companies in control of your money?
well, it's scary because they're already in control of just about everything else. I mean, look at Amazon. Amazon's into groceries and like everything. Anything you can think about buying, except for maybe live cattle, and perhaps there is live cattle on Amazon. Like it's got its hands in everything. And so but does it make sense for Facebook to get into this? I mean, they're one of the biggest companies in the world, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook. Why not become kind of like a country? If you can here, now I'm going to get weird and philosophical.
Okay,
Countries have economies,
right.
and different economies, depending where they are geographically, will spring up. So you've got technology economies, you've got resource-based economies. Like in Canada, we have oil and gas, and we have places with gold, and those types of economies can all meld up into one big GDP. So why can't corporations do the same thing? So I think that's what Facebook is doing. They're trying to diversify what they do. That has been bad for some companies in the past. I mean, if you're social media and you're good at social media, just stay good at social media. Don't try to do something more, you might fail. Well, Facebook says, hey, we want to leverage what we already have, specifically with our messaging apps. And if people are already using Facebook and Messenger to buy and sell, why don't we get in on the action?
Well, it's just weird because it seems like they're doing something that a government should be doing. And if the whole world starts using this currency, then you can't really vote people in and out of Facebook chair unless you're an executive of it. I mean, it's not like a democratic system. And all of a sudden they're in charge of the money.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question because I totally get where you're coming from here. Are we, because of the internet, are we becoming a more global society and organization?
Yes.
And the old concept of a country, does that concept, is it still relevant? I would say yes, but is becoming less relevant? Is it becoming less relevant as these companies like Facebook and Amazon and Apple become so gargantuan and they start getting into everything? I mean, Apple's been planning on making self-driving cars for quite a while, right? So they're getting into everything. Does this make sense? And does this concern you? So what do you think?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it is a little bit concerning. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I'm actually very pro globalization. I mean, I'm not from the US, but here I am, and I was just in Mexico last weekend. I go everywhere and we all eat the same McDonald's, use the same Facebook, and pretty soon we'll
Yeah.
all be spending Libra, no matter where you are, right? So it's like, do countries really matter in 300 years, or will it just be a cultural thing that people will celebrate but not really, I don't know.
Yeah, there definitely always needs to be some form of government on the local front. But definitely, I think these companies are challenging that concept. And it's actually the governments that are challenging these companies, right? We already have monopoly concerns. And in fact, Facebook was supposed to appear before the Canadian Parliament just 2 weeks ago, and they stood them up. And so, surprise, shocker, right? They've
They're
already
not being controlled. They're not being controlled by any kind
no.
of a democratic system,
But the governments are trying, and they're
but they
not
can't.
hearing. So Britain tried to do the same thing. They tried to get Mark Zuckerberg to come in front of them, and he refused them too. So is this concerning? Are they replacing governments? Are they above governments? Um,
Well, here's the other concerning thing. Facebook does not have a good reputation when it comes to protecting people's privacy. I
True.
don't care that they have this nonprofit in Switzerland.
Yep.
They're gonna somehow have leaks and issues. And so, do you want your money in that? One more thing I want to bring up before we move on. How do
Yes.
we get rich off of this?
I don't know if we can, and let's
Because we
get.
know about it, right? We know that they're going to do this, and we know it's going to be popular because all of these companies have done this.
Yeah.
Who can we invest in? Is it the Winklevoss twins? Is it
Yeah.
Facebook?
What
Or will this new company IPO, or perhaps can we find some kind of a investment company in San Francisco that will let you invest in this if you put up enough money? Like it's just so interesting that we
you
can
gotta find
see
out.
this happening. I mean, the writing is on the wall. How can we get in on this?
Well, the Winklevoss twins, interestingly that you mentioned them, they are in on this. Now, for some of our listeners who may not know who the Winklevoss twins are, is they are the arch enemies of Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back when Facebook was just an idea, the Winklevoss twins came to Mark Zuckerberg and they had an idea for a social media dating website. It was supposed to
Oh.
be more focused on dating at Harvard, I believe is where they were.
Uh-huh.
And so it was kind of like Facebook, but more for dating. And so Mark Zuckerberg actually agreed and entered a contract with them to create this website. But instead of working on the Winklevoss dating website, which is similar to Facebook, he created the Facebook, which later became Facebook. And so the Winklevoss twins sued him and they ended up settling for something like $65 million.
Pennies on the dollar.
Pennies compared to the billions. So
Yeah,
they've hated him.
of
I mean, we're
course.
vitriol. And now here they are, they're sitting at the table, and apparently they're part of Libra. So here's the interesting quote. This came from Cameron Winklevoss. He says, there is so much pie to grow. I mean, at this point, we need to be frenemies.
So they're just putting this behind them in the sake of the almighty Libra.
The almighty Libra.
Yeah.
Now, for so a little bit more background on the Winklevoss twins is they're huge into Bitcoin. And they've made, I'm willing to estimate, billions, perhaps even hundreds of billions of dollars
But
on
they
Bitcoin.
lost a lot of it when it got sliced in half last year.
But they were involved in it long before it got slashed in half. They were buying at pennies or even dollars on the Bitcoin, right?
Right, right.
They're not hurting in the slightest. Their net worth may have been chopped in a good chunk, but when you take 100 billion and cut it into 50 billion,
It's still a lot of money.
I'm just making up those numbers. I have no idea what the Winklevoss twins are worth. But anyways, so I don't know. I think this is cool. I think it's a great idea. I'm concerned that it's Facebook. I'm feeling a little bit better about this nonprofit, but I still I think of all those companies. So right now there's 28 founding members and they want to get to 100. I just imagine this giant ominous table and these lights are shining down and everybody's
Yes.
what shall we do with the global currency today? Like it just
We
seems
shall
like
call it the Libra.
tablet. It's got the Queen, the Rothschilds, and the Colonel.
They're all in on it, Matt. And the Winklevoss twins.
Quote that movie. Yeah, the Winklevoss twins will be sitting at that table too. And how did they get in it? They're not a Spotify or an Uber. So yeah, there's got to be a way to make money on it. But Dan, I don't know.
I'm going to do a little investigating because I want to get rich off of this.
Yeah,
We'll talk to you again next week about that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have an article here about the new Ryzen 64 core Threaddripper.
Hey, not official, it's a leak, but we're 98.7% sure this is real. So the big news that came out of AMD before E3 was all about their 16, or they had a 12-core CPU, and then at E3 they announced a 16-core CPU, so 32 threads. Pretty awesome. But we're all going, where's the Threaddripper? Well, now there's been some leaks that say there's a 64-core Threaddripper that's been leaked and will be coming out. It's going to need its own special chipset and all kinds of things to go along with it. But it's just smoking everything out of the water from the leaks that we're hearing. So when it comes to its specifications, when it comes to what it can handle and what it can do, I mean, we're talking 128 threads. That's insanity. What would you need with that? I don't know. Who's got a Threaddripper out there right now that's just ripping through 64, right? So
There's threads.
4s now, and now they're bumping it up to 64, and they're leaving Intel in the dust. So Intel's got a lot of concern, I think. They were all about talking about their laptops and how their laptops are small and efficient and their integrated graphics with laptops. And they're trying to say you can game on this or you could be a creator on this with their laptops and their integrated graphics, but they still don't come anywhere near what a dedicated GPU would be. So in any case, I think Intel's got some catch up, and they've probably known it for a while. And so they're going to be hard at work, and I love it. This is all about competition.
Yep.
And that's great. So more leaks. Did you see the leak about the Pixel 4?
I did. I'm excited about it. I really like how their big push is a really good camera. And I have a lot of people at work that have the Pixel 3 and they love the camera. I mean, it's so close to an iPhone, right? It's great.
So this 4, just for our listeners who maybe haven't seen the leak, this is interesting. It's not a leak anymore. This actually was an official press release from Google, which is bizarre because the Pixel 4 shouldn't be released until October if they follow their regular upgrade cycle.
Right.
And so we'd heard that they were going to have multiple cameras on the back. And then there was a leak that it was going to be a square camera bump on the back, which
I saw that. Yeah.
Well, it's very similar to the iPhone, which is coming out, the iPhone 11, which is coming out this year. And all the leaks are showing a square camera bump. So a lot of people are assuming, well, this is why Google's actually released the picture, because they don't want to be blamed again for copying the iPhone.
Apple. Yeah,
right?
That makes sense.
So they already have the big giant notch. They've got a bigger notch than Apple ever had, in fact, on the front of the Pixel 3. So yeah, so now they're saying, look, we didn't copy it. We already had this idea. I think that's where it's coming from. But what I'm excited about is the Pixel phones have always had the best camera of their generation. And they've always had the highest scores. And now who's destroying them? Well, it's Huawei destroyed them with their P30 Pro.
Right.
And the crazy zoom that Huawei has. Huawei hadn't been able to totally replicate the night mode that Pixel phones have, but they came pretty darn close. And then OnePlus came out with their OnePlus 7, and they've been destroying all the same scores that Pixel originally had. And what do these phones have in common? Multiple cameras.
Right.
And they're using those multiple cameras for different things, but specifically wide angles and also zoom.
And dark pictures too.
Yeah, and dark pictures. I mean, the cam was a cool idea. Like everything that Google's doing isn't doing it because they got the best hardware. They're doing it because they've got some of the best software. Well, the great thing about software is that's just a quick update as soon as Huawei or OnePlus figures out how to do it. And apparently, I also read an article that Samsung phones are going to be getting night mode too.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that.
Well, while we're talking about phones, I just want to talk about Huawei really quick.
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah, so you know how we have the ban here in the US where you can't buy a Huawei phone here?
Yes.
You can still do it in Canada, I believe. And actually, when I was in Mexico yesterday, I saw so many advertisements for Huawei phones there. And they're really pushing it. So just 2 hours from where I live, you can go buy one. But what's that?
They're on sale. They're not selling them for the same crazy prices that they were before the ban.
Yes,
right? They're trying to liquidate their stock. They've actually stopped all manufacture.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so they're trying to get them.
And I finally got some numbers on it. It wiped out $30 billion of their revenue.
30 billion.
30 billion. And so they're, eating crow. And China's Huawei has taken this harder than expected because of the US ban. The company's founder was really, really down today and just talked a little bit about that. And he said he didn't expect it. He didn't expect the US economy to drive that much of a hit because he was hoping that the Chinese sales would keep it high, but it really, really has put a big dent in their return.
I think it's about consumer confidence because before the American ban, and I think it had a ripple effect, especially with the concept of you can't use Android anymore. You can't have solid state drives anymore, right?
Yeah.
Those types of things being levied on Huawei, I think that was totally unexpected even by Huawei. They probably looked at it and they said, oh, well, the United States is like 6% of our general revenue. Well, the whole rest of the world stopped buying Huawei because all of a sudden, well, am I going to get updates on my phone? Right? How long am I going to get updates for? And am I going to have access to the Play Store? That was a big question for about a week and a half. And so now we know they will be able to get updates on the Play Store, but for how long? And what else will happen? I'm going to prophesy here.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that this ban isn't going to last very long. I think it's really just a card that the United States government is using to negotiate this trade deal.
Very possible.
I mean, it's obvious. And China just doesn't have the same leverage over the United States that the United States apparently has over China. But you can see what China's doing. I mean, already you can't buy a Tesla in China for less than like 200 grand because it's an American car and all the import fees. And, you know, you look at Apple's iPhone is being manufactured by Foxconn in China, but now they're starting to create factories outside. You know, they're going back to Taiwan. Yeah, so they're going it's a global world, but it's definitely taking down Huawei. And part of me feels sorry for them. And part of me, the proud Canadian that I am, I look at the way that the Chinese government has treated the Canadian government over the arrest of Meng Wanzhou. And for those of our listeners who don't know who she was arrested and is the daughter of the owner of Huawei, and for breaking commissions laws. So basically she was funneling money around in Iran and shouldn't have been doing that. And so the United States had requested her to be extradited to stand trial, and Canada arrested her on that request. So China has been in my opinion, extremely unfair. You know, we're following the rule of law, and then China has suddenly banned a lot of our imports. They've said, oh, your canola oil has pests in it. We said, really? What pests? Can you show us what pests? No pests were sent. Oh, we're not going to import any of your pork anymore because we're concerned about swine flu. What swine flu? You know, like there's all these things, and you know, anything the Chinese government, and they say terrible things about Canada, like just terrible. You listen to their press releases and it's like, wow, but they can't do that to the United States. So they're kind of picking on somebody small. So part of me feels sorry because I loved Huawei as the innovator that they were. I loved their phones, their laptops, their computers, their robot vacuums. You know, they were into it, and I was all about bring on the competition to the American companies. But then when they were so embedded with the Chinese government, then it got me concerned. And then when the Chinese government started pushing pressure on my government, I'm like, wait a minute, this is wrong. You know, she broke the law.
Right.
let the legal system work its way through, right? Don't start pushing pressure on a democratic country and start forcing your way by being the big bad bully. Nobody likes to be bullied, and I can tell you Chinese reputation, at least in the West, has gone from being, wow, this is a pretty cool country that's growing really fast and we think it's awesome, to this is a really big, mean country that likes bullying and pushing smaller countries around because it can't get its way with the United States.
Wow, yeah, good point, Matt.
And we're going to get hate emails.
Yeah. So, have you seen some of the new deepfake videos on YouTube?
No, tell me about them.
So deepfake, what it is it's artificial intelligence. And it looks at a video for a certain amount of time, and then you can start to control it. And so, say, for example, there's a deep fake of President Obama where it's not really him, but they have so many frames of his face moving that they can actually create a new video and have somebody talk in the background and have the face, you know, look like he would talk. Yeah, exactly. But now there's a new algorithm that Stanford created that if you put in 40 minutes of video of somebody talking, you can actually type in a script and it will
Yeah.
talk with the same accent and
Oh,
talk with the
just
same
40
video.
minutes?
Just 40 minutes.
That's
And
scary.
it's
Talk
so
about fake
close
news.
that people can't tell the difference. So they could do it of President Trump, they could
Yeah.
do it of Mark Zuckerberg, and just have them say whatever they want, right? The really scary stuff.
Now, who's behind deepfake? Because I remember reading an article about
Google.
this before. It is Google.
Yeah, they created
Yeah.
the artificial intelligence for it.
Yeah, so Google's behind this. They can now create their own fake news, and I know that they put things in place so that they're not creating their own fake news, and they're really protecting these algorithms and this software and what they're doing. But hey, if Google's doing it today, who's going to be able to do it in 5 to 10 years?
That's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like to hear from you. Does that freak you out? Do you feel confident about Huawei, and what do you think about the new Libra coin? Tell us in the comments and here on YouTube, and please go ahead on to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, wherever you listen to us, and give us a really good review.
And they're all on the Libra Council, so
That's right, Spotify and YouTube.
so leave us a good review.
Also, we love Libra. Have a good week.
Bye.